What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a react to a video from Steve Kaufman. Why massive input beats flashcards every time. So this one was recommended to me in the Discord, and of course, it's input versus flashcards. This is a war that has been going on since the dawn of time, so let's see what he's got to say, because he's obviously picking a side. Now, normally I don't watch Normally I don't watch videos from him just because, well, if you look up in the top left-hand corner, they're all just to promote his products. But it looks like he's picking a side in this epic war that's been going on forever. So let's hear what he's got to say.
Today I want to talk about flashcards.
Bro, is it just me, or has he got cataracts? Like, I can see his right pupil, but his left pupil's really milky looking, eh?
Versus massive input.
It could just be the lighting. But I don't remember this being a thing the last time I saw his videos.
And what have I learned about?
Bro, now I can't unsee it. Maybe it's just me. Like, this is not even the point of the video. His health is not your issue. I hope he's okay, though.
Why one works or the other works. Flashcards have quite a history. Even in the 17th century, there was a famous educator called John Amos Comenius who developed a form of flashcard for, connecting words to pictures to be used in education. John Stuart Mill apparently used flashcards to learn Greek with the word, the Greek word on one side and the English word on the other. And then the flashcards moved to...
Okay, I swear to God it's me. I'm not even talking about his, pupils now. He seems to be slower. Like, in his speech cadence. I have to watch an older video from him after this, because this has got me really curious.
Form of spaced repetition system. And in the 19th century, Ebbinghaus did some research on the memory curve and how soon after first encountering an item, a word or whatever it might be, one should ideally meet that again and again. And he developed this ideal frequency to relearn something before we forget it. And in 1972, a German called Leitner wrote a book called So lernt man lernen.
For the linguists down in the comment section, let me know. We all see this. Let me just bring it up again.
A German called Leitner wrote a book called So lernt man these ideal frequency.
Okay, so we've all seen this before. This graph. Okay, this is what Anki is based on. Has there been any recent research on this forgetting curve? Or are we still basing all our research on something that's over 100 years old or whatnot? Like, I'm kind of curious. I want to know, because I actually learn a lot from the linguists in my community, okay? Because they always comment down below and they give me the newest goss, and I don't have to go read it. Like, I don't have to go read the article. So I'm actually kind of curious if this has, if this is still current science.
Frequency to relearn something before we forget it. And in 1972, a German called Leitner wrote a book called So lernt man lernen, describing how, learning was like a filing cabinet. And I remember reading the book and I thought it was very interesting. And it introduced, again, this idea of spaced repetition according to a certain formula. And this was then taken further in the late, the 1990s with...
I'm going to have to speed him up. This speed it's not working for me, guys.
Algorithms and Wozniak of SuperMemo and Anki and so forth. So it's very much a mainstream part of language learning. But another mainstream part of language learning is compelling input, massive input. And I want to look at these two based on my recent discovery of the thoughts of Geoffrey Hinton, godfather of AI, and how, when he explains how we learn. And the fact is that we learn through developing ever-expanding, ever-richer networks of experience that contribute to what we understand, what we learn, and in the case of language, what we were able to produce in the language. So one problem with flashcards and spaced repetition, which is a refinement of flashcards, is that their focus is on sort of tying one item to one item, rather than on developing ever-expanding networks of...
Steve, my man, you realize this is not how people just use flashcards. And in fact, this is not even... I don't see anyone who promotes the use of, let's say, Anki or flashcards in this modern day and age actually promoting one-to-one pairings. Like, this is not what we do. Like, if you watch my videos, you'll never see me promoting a one-to-one pairing. And I talk about often why you should not do that in the language space. And in fact, you could apply that to pretty much any space. So I think this is a you problem, if this is how you think flashcards are being used. because this is not what I recommend. In fact, like flashcards nowadays, a lot of people will use Evildea flashcards, which include the word that they want to focus on in context in a sentence so that they can hear it in context, or they'll use closed deletions so they can actually try and figure out what the word that is missing based on the context. We always include context. So this is a misrepresentation of how to actually use flashcards. And it sounds like it's based on those guys from over 100 years ago. I know you're old, my man, but come on, we've moved beyond that point.
Knowledge and of experience. So a flashcard is kind of an artificial...
Wait, that's it? That was the entire reason why... Okay, there must be more coming up.
Artificial retrieval experience, an isolated retrieval experience.
It's... Steve, my man, what are you doing? No! I can't believe this is coming from a place of honesty. No one uses flashcards like this.
Where you try to remember this one thing, it's like, again, Leitner's filing cabinet. What it is you're trying to remember is located in...
Based on the filing cabinet model, treats memory as storage and retrieval, but that's not how the... Oh my god. Okay. A good use of flashcards basically takes input. And in fact, it doesn't even have to be input. You could do input, you can do output, you can do everything with flashcards, okay? But I guess the problem is the idea of a flashcard and what we remember from like primary school when you just do those little paper cards, okay? But the point of a flashcard is to give you focused CI, comprehensible input, with one component missing and the remaining components you all understand to help train your brain in a focused manner upon whatever word or structure you're trying to learn, okay? It basically takes a whole heap of input and just focuses in on a certain section of that input. That's what you should do. Like, just go watch any of my Anki videos on this channel. I've made multiple different ones. I've even made my own programs before. Like, this is just a misrepresentation of flashcards.
In a particular place in your filing cabinet. And as Hinton explains, we don't learn that way. We don't go to a specific location. Every exposure to a range of information is an opportunity to enrich our connection. We weight certain things.
And why are we doing input versus flashcards realistically? Because you should be doing both. Like, you should be doing, like, okay, I gotta be careful with my words here. If you're going to do this in the most optimized way possible and it works for you, then doing both is the smart thing to do, okay? Because if you do the flashcards, it allows you to get words into your noggin as fast as possible, and then the input basically cements it and helps you understand all the various different ways those words are used. So one helps it get in, and the other reinforces it. That's the whole point behind flashcards.
WEIGHT, we put more weight on different aspects of what we're learning, and out of that becomes a richer and richer sense of...
Isn't, like, I've never really used link queue, but isn't flashcards like a part of it? Like, isn't there a whole section for it that's not like flashcards? Like, why are we creating this straw man right now?
Of network, of web of connections that enables us to learn. So the question becomes, do we want to have this specific association with a specific word and its meaning, or do we want to expand this network? Do we want to develop our natural ability to recognize patterns? And it's the latter that...
You can even do the whole pattern recognition thing. I often do. Like, I don't create just one flashcard per word and like just one word in context, okay? I generally create a minimum of 6. That way I can cover all the main different types of, let's say, templates that might appear in. The most common ones, okay? So, again, you don't have to just do one. You could do as many as you could have fucking 60 flashcards for one verb in all its different possible contexts if you want. And then that allows you to focus in on all those different contexts rather than just trying to consume hundreds of hours of input or read, book after book to try and figure it out in all its different contexts.
It's actually more effective based on Hinton's analysis and based on my experience. So according to Hinton's understanding of how we learn, the retrieval of a flashcard item is a different cognitive activity than exposing oneself to a variety of content with different people, different emotional connection, different lexical or grammatical connection, all of which is enriching your ability to understand the material. So rather than memorizing pairs or rules, you're expanding your sense of...
What is this memorizing pairs or rules? What's that got related to? Okay, isolated from context, no rhythm, intonation, emotion, or grammatical patterns, just a bare pair. No! This is not correct. Oh my god, I'll give you guys a quick example. Okay, so as you can see, I've got 3 different decks going at the moment, and every time I probably show Anki in my videos, it looks a bit different because I like to play around with it and try out different things and different ideas. But as you can see, I've got a listen deck, a production deck, and a reading deck, okay? So if we just go to the listen, so like I got to arrive in 15 minutes, when will you leave, you know? Okay, so I can't eat the eggs, I'm allergic to eggs, okay? And then I can't eat the shrimp, I'm allergic to shrimp. I can't eat the peanuts, I'm allergic to peanuts. I can't eat the fish, I'm allergic to fish, okay? Do you see the commonality between these sentences? I'm just swapping out the noun, but they're in context, okay? So these words here, I'm not just learning eggs by itself. And on the front, I've just got audio, okay? Now, if we go to the other decks, so if I go to my production deck, I probably got some similar sentences in here somewhere as well, okay? As you can see, I've been trying out some stuff in here. These decks are pretty new. Where is it? Okay, well, I've got the same type of stuff in here, okay, in the production deck. And then if I go into the reading deck, I got the same type of shit in here as well, okay? And this takes me 20 minutes to go through all this, and I do 30 cards a day, okay? And I'm just playing around with a new idea at the moment. I literally just set this up maybe about a week ago, I think. But no matter whenever I've showed Anki on this channel, flashcards, okay? Every time I've shown Anki on this channel, I've always shown how to learn things in context. It's never just individual words. You can probably claim, okay, if I go into here, and I go back to some of those beginning ones, every second Sunday, maybe you can claim that is an individual word. But it's not, because that's actually made up of several different components. I'm actually learning a chunk there. So it's like, this is not just a one-to-one. This is me hearing it in context. And then we've got, and as I said, that's a chunk, even though in English it's 3 separate words, and Chinese would be kind of one. So we've got, I'm hearing it, I'm producing it, and then I'm reading it. So 3 different areas I'm trying to cover off on there, okay. So this one-to-one pairing thing is just not true, and I also create multiple cards per thing. Then we've got no rhythm, intonation, emotional, grammatical patterns. Well, if you're just reading, you're not going to have intonation or rhythm really anyway. That's why I've got the audio deck, so I can actually hear those spoken out, and it's generated by AI voice. The AI voice is really accurate, by the way. Depending on the language. For Chinese, it's very accurate. Okay, and grammatical patterns, as you saw, I had a pattern, okay? So the pattern for being allergic. So none of this is true.
Of the rhythm, the intonation, the range of meaning of words, it's a much more complex, expanding connection with the language, which the sort of isolated retrieval of a flashcard item just doesn't do that. It's much, much more limited. Another thing is massive input means just that, massive input. If you spend an hour with flashcards, how many flashcards are you going to do? 100? Maybe? A few more than that? 150? Whereas in the same hour spent with mass input of content, you are exposing yourself to significantly more, massively more words, connections, inferences, grammatical patterns.
Yeah, but you're making a massive mistake here in what you're promoting, okay? Because I've tried both routes. I'm literally learning Spanish by pure input. And then for Chinese, I'm doing a lot of flashcards with some input, okay? So the difference here is that with flashcards, you're actively engaging. You're like with every single word that pops up, okay? That's why it can become a bit of a session, like almost a bit of a mental workout. But with input, you're kind of skimming over a whole heap of stuff, and you get some things here and there. Like I've shown that through my Dreaming Spanish series, that sometimes you need to see words hundreds of times before they even settle into your brain. And sometimes they still don't settle, okay? And it takes a fucking flashcard to get them in there. Like, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do input, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do flashcards. I'm saying they work, they complement each other. They work great together. Like, why would you not do both? In my brain, unless you just do not like flashcards, fine, that's fine. Don't do it then. Or if you don't like input, you can just do flashcards if you really want. Like, it'd be a bad way of doing it, but like, not a good idea. Okay. And also some of the critiques here around intonation and all that type of stuff, that's only true if you've got audio to go with the input, okay? So, like, at the moment, he's not showing audio, he's just showing reading. Now, I believe LinkQ does have actual audio, but I'm just pointing that out.
And all the while you are simultaneously updating the weighting of different items in your web of connections that relate to that language, constantly being renewed every time you're listening and reading. But you need a lot of it. And it's only the massive listening and reading that gives you the quantity of connections to the language that are going to help you learn. The number of words that you can connect to in flashcard review.
Okay, this is my assumption based on my experience, okay? I have no science to back this up. So based on doing 900 hours of just Spanish input versus what I've done with Chinese and flashcards and input, okay? I think if you did just pure input and then you did flashcards, like, okay, let me explain this better. If you did just a pure input approach and then you did an input slash flashcard approach, the input slash flashcard approach would be about 3 times as fast as just the input approach. Okay, I have no numbers to back that up. This is just based on my experience with 2 separate languages. But I feel like that's actually pretty accurate. I would love to know if there's any science around that. And if anyone's got anything, let me know down in the comment section. But that is just based on my experience around the matter. Input is really difficult for getting words into your brain, but it's good for cementing words you already know.
Is limited even if you use a spaced repetition system. So to summarize, the flashcard is based on the storage model of memory. You have stuff stored in your brain somewhere in a filing cabinet, and you're going to go and retrieve it. It doesn't treat, or it ignores the fact that what we're learning in the language is not specific retrieval of items that are stored somewhere, but rather that it's this constant renewal of a network, constantly enriching, constantly being reevaluated, reweighted based on whatever the reaction of your brain is to the...
At the moment, he's showing input all as just reading input. Like if you just, okay, there's an audio button right there. Okay, cool. So there is actual audio involved here. But that's important to note as well, because you need to learn how to pronounce the language before you go to a reading approach. Otherwise, you're just going to sound like an American speaking the language or an Australian, and in worst case scenarios, you just be totally incomprehensible to people.
Content that is being massively read and listened to. So again, the flashcard assumes that there is a pair, what's on one side of the card, what's on the other side of the card. So a one-to-one sort of dual relationship, whereas it's not that. What you need to do every time is to trigger an additional regeneration of the language patterns that are in your brain. Now, if you have been following me in my videos, you'll know that I'm not tremendously, I've never been a great fan of flashcards. I've said so. I've always thought flashcards should be few, easy, and immediately before or after studying a lesson. The flashcards are there to get me through the lesson. And I've always said I prefer a list to flashcards. So I might look at a list of vocabulary items before doing a lesson to prime me, or immediately after doing a lesson. A list, always preferable to flashcards. And
why is a list preferable? He said to prime him, but wouldn't flashcards do the exact same thing? Except I would say there's one benefit to flashcards, and that is you're not going to work on a set order. See, if you guys have ever worked with a list before, what can happen is you can become to predict what's going to happen next in the list. And flashcards add some type of randomness to that. So it breaks that up a little bit. Although you can start to predict flashcards as well if you don't create like various types of flashcards that aren't easy to predict. But like I haven't heard a reason for why a list is preferable.
And where I do have flashcards, I want them to be easy. So I want both the target language and my own language on the front of the flashcard. So I have never been very enthusiastic about flashcards, but some people do like flashcards. And if I look at it, there are situations where the flashcards are the solution of choice. One example would be my granddaughter one summer worked in a local supermarket, and she had to memorize the codes of the different items in the produce section of the supermarket so that she wouldn't have to look them up each time as a customer came through and had to pay for the items that they had bought. So she created her own flashcard system out of paper for banana, parsley, asparagus or whatever it might be. But there is no connection between banana and asparagus. So that's not a network. That is a perfect example of a one-to-one situation where the flashcard is helpful.
Okay, you could have given a better example if you're trying to go this route. What you could say, for example, is numbers. Lots of people struggle to hear numbers in their target language. I'm sure plenty of people will go down the comment section who have done a lot of input and be like, I literally cannot, I hear a number and it just goes over my head, okay? Because a number is so information dense. But if you create a whole heap of audio flashcards for like a range of numbers that you just want to work on, okay? Let's say dates or something, the 2000s, because obviously a lot of people talk about dates from, 2000 to 2026, like the years, and you add those all as audio cards and you listen to them, suddenly you're going to find that when they randomly pop up in that content that you're watching, you're able to recognize them better because you're focused in on them. Okay, that is an example where input will just not help. Like, well, it will help, but it will take so much longer. I know this for a fact because I'm doing it with Spanish. Like, I'm doing just a pure input approach, and I've listened to almost 1,000 hours of Spanish, and the numbers still are a blur. Okay. But for Chinese, numbers are clear as day, and I did those through flashcards.
Situation where the flashcard is helpful, is when you're at the very beginning in a language where nothing connects. You don't see the connection between different items. For example, if I go in a brand new language, I will typically study that in sentence mode, and everything is strange to me, and I will do the matching pairs because it's easy. Matching pairs for that sentence, so small number of items.
What is this, matching pairs? What? Are you matching?
Because...
Okay, sorry, I thought that was all one language. So you're just matching the English to... See, this is I hate this type of flashcard, because then all you do is just recognize the shape of your target words. You're not actually recognizing the words. You're not Okay, maybe for reading this works better, but like for listening, this is damn near useless. For production, this is damn near useless. Just for reading, recognition of words instantly and reading, I guess this could help. Okay? This is definitely not something I would use in any other case. I actually hate these types of flashcards.
It's something I can do that's kind of fun, that's easy, and starts to, undo the strangeness of the language. And I think Duolingo provides the same benefit, that a totally new language, which seems so very strange, can become a little bit less strange, and you start to build a little bit of a network of things that connect. And a perfect example of that would be when I started into Chinese characters, where initially the characters were simply individual characters with individual meaning, one-to-one relationship. At an early stage in the language, when I hadn't yet developed enough familiarity with Chinese characters to see how they related to each other, and in terms of some of the components. And then, of course, later on, as I got better in Chinese, I had enough of a sense of the language overall that I no longer needed to do the flashcards, because I now was able to take advantage of the sense of the environment of the language, the connectivity between different elements in what I was reading or listening to. So in those situations, the flashcard is a viable system. However, when flashcarding becomes a chore, because you have so many flashcards to do, and the flashcards that you were going through are now far removed from when you first encountered them.
Everyone's going to encounter this problem the first time they start using flashcards, no matter what I say. The reason being is because everyone gets excited at the beginning. They add a bunch of flashcards. It's easy to do on the first day, the second day, third day, and then they realize, oh shit, the number of flashcards I've got to do builds up. So you become better at building flashcards. You stop just making flashcards for every random little thing out there, and you start making them around systems and templates and patterns, stuff like that, as opposed to just trying to add a flashcard for everything. Like, my flashcards are based around trying to teach certain structures to me, to help me recognize and produce those structures, and they're less about trying to memorize certain nouns and stuff. I'll pick up most of the nouns I need from content, like from input, okay? Because nouns are something that you can pick up quite easily from input. Nouns, some adjectives like colors and stuff. However, there's certain things, certain structures, which they just take way too long, and that's where flashcards just become really, really handy.
In a bit of content. Then I think the disadvantages of flashcards that I outlined here become a bigger and bigger, burden, become more and more evident. And at that point, you should move away from flashcards and focus more on massive exposure to the language, which is going to ultimately...
Okay, but we haven't spoken of any of the downsides of input. Yeah, input has downsides. Okay, what are the downsides? Well, some of the downsides is that you end up sitting there for hours and hours and hours consuming the language, and you're actually not realistically making much progress. You're starting to build up more and more connections between the words that you might know. But just look at my Dreaming Spanish series. I'm 900 plus hours into Spanish, okay? And I know for literally a fact, because I've learned Esperanto, okay, to fluency, that I could have done that so much faster if I introduced flashcards. So what happens is you spend so much time on input, you feel like you're learning, but you're not. You just keep refreshing the same old shit that you've already learned, okay? Like, I feel like with input, it's one of those things where you get less and less benefit from it the deeper you go into it. And there comes a point where you almost have to force yourself to go for very, very bespoke, specific input to try and get those words and structures that you want. And you could just speed that up with some flashcards. Like, Because like there's a certain, you've all heard the thing before where someone says, you know, there's like 2,000 words that are commonly used every single day in the language. Okay, those 2,000 words, blah blah blah, and it's not really accurate, but let's just go with that number for now. 2,000 words. Well, that means you're going to get smashed with those 2,000 words. You're going to probably get good at those 2,000 words, but everything else you're not going to hear enough to really like cement it in your brain. You're going to have to consume hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of input just to get those few additional little words. Okay, when the flashcards, that could help you out, you know? Like, this is not a one thing or the other. There's benefits to both.
Enable you to develop the web of connections that you need in order to understand better and eventually produce the language better. So people are going to say that I'm unfair, that I'm prejudiced against flashcards. I'm not prejudiced against anything that people like to do, because the fundamental, rule number one in language learning is do the things you like to do. Because if you like to do certain things and if you stay with it, you will improve.
That's good. I agree with that fully.
However, based on my understanding of how the brain learns, my belief right now is that if you want to be more efficient in...
I think the issue is your understanding of how to use flashcards efficiently. So you built up kind of a straw man about how to use flashcards there at the beginning. And maybe that's based on historical trends, but it's not based on how I promote the use of flashcards or many, many other YouTubers promote the use of them. So this is not really an input versus flashcards thing. This is an input versus your understanding of how flashcards are used, which does not represent how the vast majority of people use them. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I know some of you hate flashcards, and that's cool. No problem with that whatsoever. However, it's almost undeniable at this point in time that they help, okay? You may hate them, but they would help if you could use them. Like if you had the desire to use them. However, there is also the issue that some people go too far into flashcards and they make that the majority of their input, which is also a negative. You got to balance these things out. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. See you all in the next video. If you're not there, that's fine. I will find you and give you cataracts. That sounds really bad, but you're going to get them. So make sure you watch. Otherwise, you'll get cataracts and then you can't watch. And that would just suck.